Thank you. It's a huge privilege to be here this evening, and thank you for BrexitCentral for organising this great fringe. You know, we may be breaking up, but we can still be the best of friends. We may be breaking up, and we should be the best of friends. We're going to continue to work together, to trade together, to look after each other and protect each other in an uncertain world. That was the optimism and hope and positivity of the Florence speech. But then a few days later, the Telegraph's Brussels correspondent sent a report to London. The Eurocrats at Brussels said that Mr. Juncker had more or less dictated the speech down the telephone to tell the Prime Minister what to say. Mr. Barnier was apparently looking at squeezing Britain because we would have no option but to do a deal on their terms, like Greece. I don't know about you, but I don't think we're like Greece at all. I think we're Great Britain. Great Britain. And we want to have a positive relationship with Europe going forward, but we worry, and I worry, about the attitude of Brussels. I know that the member states like France and Germany and the rest of the EU27 want to have a positive relationship going forward, and I welcome that. But we need to overcome the difficulties that too often are presented by Brussels. And we do have cards on our side. You know, we can actually walk away. We must be in a position, as John just said, to be able to walk away. Because let's face it, legally, we don't owe any money to the European Union as a matter of international law. Legally, they owe us 10 billion euros for the return of capital in the European Investment Bank. As a matter of practical reality, when you look at trade, the European Union has a trade surplus with Britain in goods of £100 billion. Tariffs would cost European exporters to Britain £13 billion. Tariffs would affect our exports to Europe by £6 billion. So Europe benefits from trade with Britain. And the European Commission is desperate for us to send more money to plug the budget hole that they are worrying about. So my message is, we should have courage. We should believe in ourselves. We know that we have cards on our side, and we need to make sure that we are ready on day one. Deal or no deal, prepared for every single eventuality. And that's why I've got together businesses, ports, the Road Haulage Association, port operators, transport experts, customs experts, to look at how we can do this and put out a detailed blueprint to make sure that we can be ready on day one. And I know that the government is looking at it, and I think it's important that we prepare more and more and more. And the reason is really simple. If you are in a negotiation, and the other side knows that you can't walk away from the table because you're desperate, then the price will go up and the terms will get worse. But if they know that you're prepared to walk away from the table, if they drive too hard, if they know that you can walk away from the table and you will make a success of it, then the price will go down and the terms will improve. That, my friends, is why we must make sure that we are ready on day one so we can forge ahead on day two. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And we move on to our final speaker tonight. He's been the Member of Parliament for Esher and Walton since 2010. And he's very much not someone to be messed with, because he used to be a member of the British karate squad. He's already on his second stint as a minister at the Ministry of Justice, where, crucially, he's one of the ministers who's going to be taking through the House of Commons the Great Repeal Bill over the coming weeks and months. Dominic Raab, it's great to have you here.
Well, Jonathan, thank you and your amazing team at BrexitCentral, and thanks to all the panellists for their contributions too, and thanks to all of you for coming. Can I start with two small confessions? After all, it's a small, informal event, not many of you around. I'm sure none of you will go and tell anyone, but I feel rather a letdown to you all, because both in the Ministry of Justice, where I think I'm right in saying I'm the only Leave campaigning minister, but also on the withdrawal bill ministerial team where there's a mix of us, I've had no blazing rows about Brexit. I'm sorry, what can I say? No fights, not even a flounce. So much so that whether it's Charlie Elphicke, David Lidington, my boss, with all his diplomatic experience, the Solicitor General with his forensic legal mind, I've got to tell you, hand on my heart, I love my Remain voting ministerial colleagues. I can't help it. And just look at how effective and dedicated Charlie is. As a Brexiteer, and I yield to no one in my passion and commitment to it, I would have to be crazy not to want to team up with the likes of David Lidington, with all of that EU Brussels experience, or the forensic legal mind of the Solicitor General, as we strive as one team under Theresa May to make a success of Brexit for everyone in this country, however they voted in the referendum. Of course, the media will act as a magnifying glass over every tension, every crease between any politician. And let's face it, healthy debate amongst politicians is a good thing. Here at the Labour Party, here at the Conservative Party conference, we don't shut down debate about Brexit because it's too important, and because we need to listen to the views of our colleagues. But you should know that the vast overwhelming majority of us do exactly what you would expect, which is to work together, united under Theresa May, for the good of our precious country, including on Brexit, most of all on Brexit. Now, my second confession, amidst the doom and the gloom, is, I have to tell you, I'm unapologetically, unreservedly, unrelentingly optimistic about the case for Britain. I'm almost as Tiggerish as Jacob and Charlie, not quite, but I'm working on it. But where is, amongst the circumspect amongst you, the rational evidence to back up the case for what Jonathan described as Project Cheer? Well, first, let's look at the economic reality. Take the city. We recently had the global rankings for financial hubs. It's called the Global Financial Centres Index. It ranked London number 1. The gap between London and New York, number 2, is widening. No EU financial centre in the global top 10. I'm just saying. Or take tech investment. In the first half of 2017, we had record levels of global investment in UK tech. Double the amount of the next biggest EU hub, which is Frankfurt. All that, despite Brexit. The economic reality is we're going to make a success of this come what may. We hope we'll strive for the best possible deal, but as many have said on the panel, of course we need to be prepared for all outcomes, because negotiation is a tango, it takes two to tango. I think the second evidence, the case for Project Cheer, is actually the progress that we're making, slowly but surely. The first 6 months was always going to be hard going. The Florence speech, I think, if you look at the reaction of our EU partners, has helped to shift the dial. If you look at the EU's own practice, for example, they have no free trade deal with any other country in the world where they would have the ECJ deciding disputes. That's looking at it from their point of view. Look at the EU position papers. They're quite a good read. We're told we wouldn't be talking about trade, but actually the EU papers talk about the intellectual property rights that they want to preserve around Parma ham and French camembert. Quite right too. The dynamic of this negotiation, I think, will inevitably lead on to talking about trade issues, as much because of the EU's precious commercial economic interests, as much as the UK's. And yes, Brussels will hang tough on the money, but David Davis has reported to the House of Commons the progress we're making on protection of UK nationals abroad and EU nationals in this country on the very important sensitive issue of Northern Ireland. Even the President of the Northern region of France has welcomed our customs proposal, and as the French ambassador can testify, he's a tough cookie. So we're making progress. And the third piece of evidence for Project Cheer is this glorious document in front of you today, in pea green House of Commons paper. It is the EU withdrawal bill. Now, I could dive in and talk about the corresponding powers involving devolved authorities and all the technical detail, but amidst the complexities, this bill does two things only, but fundamentally. The first thing it will do is make sure we have a smooth Brexit, no legal cliff edge, legal certainty for the businesses and UK citizens in this country. That is a risk of Brexit. This bill helps us deal with it. And secondly, it takes back democratic national control over our laws. The number one reason people of this country voted to leave the EU. So people like me are accountable to people like you. So the UK Supreme Court does what it says on the tin and has the last word on the laws of the land. And it's all in this document right here. Friends, who could possibly object to any of that? What Democrat could possibly stand in the way of such a consensus project to manage the undoubted risks of uncertainty in the Brexit process, but grasp with both hands the huge opportunity? Not one Conservative MP. I can tell you, friends, that every Conservative voted at second reading for the EU withdrawal bill. Even Ken, especially Ken. Now, in fairness, some Labour rebels supported it too, and I think they've been quite brave, and we ought to show some recognition and respect for their courage. But Jeremy... But the truth is, Jeremy Corbyn whipped his party against the whole bill, against Brexit, having weeks before toured the length and breadth of the country, vowing to back Brexit. I have to tell you, that is an unprecedented fraud on the public and especially Labour's voters. In a competitive field, that must count as Jeremy Corbyn's biggest con yet. And when we get back to debating this bill, he will have his cards called for everyone to see. Now, I know there's lots of talk about Henry VIII clauses, parliamentary scrutiny. Actually, there's some reasonable points being made about that. We will listen and we will get the process right. As long as it doesn't scupper Brexit, as long as it doesn't leave us out of time, that 2-year deadline is the EU's deadline, negotiated by Gordon Brown back in before the 2010 election when we had the Lisbon Treaty. But there's a sensible debate to be had, all of that, and we'll get it right. But let's face it, let's have a bit of the big picture here. Given the scale of what we're trying to achieve, if the biggest bone of contention on this bill is the procedure we use in secondary legislation for a limited period of 2 years to iron out some of the technical glitches when it comes to the Brexit process, the big picture is we're on track, we're doing well, we're going to take back control of our laws. So let's not allow refinement of the process, and process can be important, to eclipse the substance, to eclipse the objectives, the huge opportunity to end the supremacy of EU law, to end the jurisdiction of the ECJ, but most of all, the positive for us to affirm our confidence and our pride in taking back democratic mastery of our own destiny. That's what this bill will do. That's the opportunity from Brexit. Above all, friends, and with the vim, the vigour and the verve of the terrific BrexitCentral team, let's not allow the perpetual pessimism in some quarters of the media to take our eye off the prize in this process, which must be to faithfully deliver on the referendum, so we take back control of our money, our laws and our borders. So we strive in good faith with a good heart and an open heart for the very best deal with our EU friends and our EU partners represented in this room tonight. And above all, we free Britain to broaden our horizons and be a global leader in free trade. That's the prize, and we will stay the course. Thank you all very much.
Well, Well, ladies and gentlemen, several words of thanks to all you for coming, to Richard for making the event happen, to my colleagues at Brexit Central, Darren, David, Hugh and Meg for making this event happen, and indeed for making Brexit Central happen, which I hope if you're not reading, you will read every morning and sign up for our email. Most of all, thank you to our speakers, particularly for keeping to time. We had a very strict time limit. They all kept within it. Brilliant. So please do show our appreciation for Dominic, Charlie, John, Penny, Scott, David and Jacob. Thank you all very much. Good night.